So after Rittenhouse shot Joseph Rosenbaum and he's running down the street, he actually encountered Gage Grosskreutz, who was live streaming. And Grosskreutz said, "You shot somebody, you shot somebody." And Rittenhouse said something to the effect of, "I'm going to the police," or "I'm running to the police," or something, and continued to run by. And the defense pointed to that video and said, look, Rittenhouse runs by Gage Grosskreutz. He talks to him. He doesn't fire his weapon. How could he be perceived as an active shooter if he was completely restrained in that situation? And he didn't fire his gun until he was on the ground and Grosskreutz had his own weapon drawn. It was an absolutely explosive day in the courtroom. The defense shocking everyone, including the prosecutor, by calling Kyle Rittenhouse to the stand in the middle of their case. The defense is crying foul. They're arguing they did not get a high-quality version of this drone video that the state had, and now they want the judge to declare a mistrial. This was probably the most important testimony of the trial so far. Gage Grosskreutz was shot in the arm. The jury actually saw very graphic video. His right bicep was essentially blown off. The jury also heard conflicting statements from Grosskreutz about exactly how that shooting unfolded. Gage Grosskreutz was live streaming a couple blocks away when Kyle Rittenhouse shot Joseph Rosenbaum.
It sounded like gunshots.
Then Rittenhouse runs past Grosskreutz.
Hey, what are you doing? You shot somebody?
Grosskreutz told the jury a few seconds later he realized Rittenhouse was the shooter and followed him. Grosskreutz had a gun in his waistband but did not have a valid concealed carry permit.
Did there come a time when you were running that you did pull your gun out?
Yes.
Why?
Again, in the moment, I thought that the defendant was an active shooter.
This video shows Rittenhouse on the ground. Grosskreutz is approaching when Rittenhouse shoots Anthony Huber. Grosskreutz testified he stopped, put his hands up, and was never going to shoot Rittenhouse.
I do know, though, I was never trying to kill the defendant. That was never something that I was trying to do.
But on cross-examination, the defense went after Grosskreutz, pointing out that the lawsuit he filed and his statement to police do not mention that he had a gun when he got shot.
Your testimony today and how this case turns out has an impact on your ability to try to collect your $10 million, right?
That is correct.
The defense contends Grosskreutz pointed his loaded gun at Rittenhouse.
Hands are up, and at that point, he has not fired at you, correct?
No, he is not.
It wasn't until you pointed your gun at him, advanced on him, with your gun, now your hands down, pointed at him, that he fired, right?
Correct.
Grosskreutz also testified that he came here to Kenosha as a medic, not to demonstrate, and he denied that he is a member of the political group, the People's Revolution. But on cross-examination, the defense played a clip of Grosskreutz's live stream, and you hear him yell at Rittenhouse, "Go home, you expletive stooge." Grosskreutz also then admitted that he has attended a People's Revolution rally, he has spoken at one of those rallies, and he has used the phrase, "Long live the revolution." Live in Kenosha, Kristen Barbarisi, CBS 58 News. The state is blaming this entire mess on the incompatibility between Apple and Android phones. The defense disagrees and says they were sent the wrong file, but either way, they're asking the judge to declare a mistrial. Halfway through the state's case, prosecutors got this drone video of the Joseph Rosenbaum shooting. It became a focal point of their case. They say it shows Kyle Rittenhouse pointing his gun, provoking the situation, and eliminating his claim of self-defense. But the defense says they never got this video.
We didn't have the quality of evidence that the state had until the case had been closed.
Instead, the defense got a lower quality version. The state blames defense attorney Natalie Wisco and her cell phone.
On Friday, the individual who took the footage, who had been unable to find, came and airdropped the footage to Detective Howard. Miss Wisco asked that it be emailed to her. He emailed her the file. Now, somewhere along the lines, whether it was, it appears the issue is, I believe Ms. Wisco could not have an airdrop because she has an Android phone.
Prosecutors say Wisco's phone must have compressed the file, reducing the quality. But Wisco says no way, and she says the state sent an entirely different file.
I have never looked at that video on my cell phone. As soon as I received that video via email, I downloaded it to this laptop, which is the evidentiary laptop we've been using through the duration of this trial.
The defense says if they had that video, they might have changed strategies.
We would have done this case in a little bit different manner.
And regardless of the reason for the error, the defense wants a mistrial. The motion for a mistrial related to the drone video would be without prejudice, meaning Rittenhouse could be retried. But remember, last week, the defense also filed a motion for a mistrial with prejudice, meaning he could not be retried. The judge has not ruled on either one of those motions and could do so even after a verdict is reached. None of the jurors wanted to speak after those verdicts were read, but we do have some insight into how they made this decision. That's because of the questions they asked. They did not ask many. It seems one of the most vital parts of this case and those deliberations was a 30-second drone video. The state got this drone video of the Joseph Rosenbaum shooting a week into the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and shifted their strategy, hanging their case on these 30 seconds. Prosecutor Thomas Binger made it the focus of his closing arguments.
I'm going to replay it a few times so you can see quite clearly that the defendant sets the fire extinguisher on the ground with his left hand and then brings his left hand over to the gun and raises it and points.
But the defense argued the video isn't clear and called it a desperate last-minute attempt by the state.
Provocation, another thing. Think back on November 2nd when this case started. Did you hear one word out of Mr. Binger's mouth about provocation? You didn't, because it was never said. But when his case explodes in his face, now he comes out with provocation.
The jury took notice, asking to see the drone video and slow motion versions during deliberations. They spent 46 minutes alone in the courtroom, watching it on multiple screens over and over, talking about what they saw. It was the very last question jurors asked. After that, they went back into the jury room for more than a day of deliberations before reaching these 5 verdicts.
Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty.
Before the verdicts were read, the judge warned there should not be any emotional outbursts in the courtroom. Still, we saw Kyle Rittenhouse's knees buckle as he fell, his mother and 2 sisters sobbing in the gallery. We also saw a lot of tears from the fiance of Joseph Rosenbaum and the girlfriend of Anthony Huber. Darrell Brooks cried in court as he faced charges that would send him to prison for the rest of his life. But the criminal complaint paints a picture of a man who acted deliberately and without emotion as he plowed down his victims, including children and the elderly. Wearing a suicide prevention smock, 39-year-old Darrell Brooks made his first court appearance. Members of the victim's family sat just feet away.
There are not words to describe the risk that this defendant presents to our community.
According to the criminal complaint, when Brooks drove into the parade route, multiple officers tried to stop him, jumping in front of the car, even firing shots. But Brooks looked straight ahead with no emotion on his face, and officers say what he did was an intentional act to strike and hurt as many people as possible.
Everything was done to get him to stop, and he just simply continued down the roadway, causing death and destruction in his path.
At one point, an officer thought Brooks was going to stop. Instead, he accelerated and took an abrupt left turn into a crowd of parade participants. One witness told police it looked like the SUV was trying to avoid vehicles, not people. The district attorney asked for a $5 million cash bail.
He has an arrest record from 3 states, to include Wisconsin, Nevada, and Georgia.
Over the last 2 decades, Brooks has at least 12 convictions. There's currently a warrant for his arrest in Nevada, where he's a registered sex offender. He also has 2 open cases in Milwaukee County, one from earlier this month where he's alleged to have run over the mother of his child with the same car he used in Sunday's attack. The court commissioner granted the high bail.
The nature of this offense is shocking. I've not seen anything like this in my very long career.
The district attorney says she will be filing a 6th count of first-degree intentional homicide after learning 8-year-old Jackson Sparks died from his injuries on Tuesday. She also says several others are in critical condition and more than 60 are injured, so they're reviewing additional charges. Brooks will be back in court on January 14th for a preliminary hearing. Reporting in Waukesha, Kristen Barbarisi, CBS 58 News. Earlier this week, the Milwaukee County District Attorney said in a statement that $1,000 cash bail was far too low, and they're looking into how that happened. But a closer look at this case shows Darrell Brooks skated the justice system on technicalities and oversights multiple times over the last several years. Darrell Brooks has more than a dozen convictions across 3 states in the last 2 decades.
There's a long history of flight, obstructing, bail jumping type behavior, Your Honor.
At the time of Sunday's attack, Brooks was out on bail in 2 Milwaukee County cases. The first from 2020. Brooks allegedly got in a fight with his nephew and shot at 2 people. He was in jail on a $7,500 cash bail and requested a speedy trial, meaning the case had to be heard within 90 days. But that didn't happen because the justice system is backed up, in part because of court closures coupled with a spike in crime during the pandemic.
So now we have this bottleneck situation where all these cases, these new cases, these older cases are trying to work its way through the system, and the judges and the prosecutors and law enforcement is doing their best to try and keep up with the volume.
To comply with the statute, bail was reduced to $500 and Brooks got out in February. On November 2nd, he allegedly tried to run the mother of his child over with a car. He then posted a $1,000 cash bail. Milwaukee County District Attorney John Chisholm says that bail was inappropriately low and an internal review is underway.
I don't think that this case, and while it appears like that at first blush, isn't a sign of the complete breakdown in the criminal justice system. I think this was an isolated incident that really happened as a culmination of a lot of different pressures on the criminal justice system right now, primarily because of COVID.
There is an active warrant for Brooks' arrest in Nevada after he failed to comply with sex offender registry requirements. Since that warrant was issued, Brooks has been arrested multiple times here in Wisconsin and in Georgia, but it's unclear if officials in either state had any idea he was wanted out west. The district attorney's office says they are still completing that internal review, but they expect the DA will sit down with us next week and answer some of these questions. Live in Waukesha, Kristen Barbarisi, CBS 58 News.